The whispers did not begin with a public speech. They did not begin with a leaked interview or another explosive documentary trailer. According to palace insiders, this time the shock exploded from something far colder, a silent internal order allegedly circulating through Buckingham Palace just before sunrise, carrying one sentence that reportedly froze veteran courtiers where they stood. King Charles had allegedly ordered Meghan Markle's name removed from private royal records entirely. Not ceremonial records, not public archives, private internal palace files. The kind of records never discussed publicly because they are tied to access, trust, proximity, and the invisible machinery that keeps the monarchy functioning behind those massive palace gates. And insiders claim the moment that order moved through administrative offices, staff realized this was no longer a family feud. This was institutional erasure, because for years, despite all the interviews, accusations, memoirs, podcasts, and public fallout, whispers inside royal circles claimed there were still traces of Meghan quietly remaining inside protected palace systems. Tiny remnants, administrative recognitions, archived access histories, internal relationship designations connected to her years inside the royal fold. Even after Megxit, even after Frogmore Cottage, even after Harry's memoir reportedly sent panic through royal households, palace insiders allegedly believed King Charles had resisted fully severing those invisible ties because somewhere beneath the public silence, he still hoped reconciliation might one day happen. But according to growing palace whispers, something changed recently. Something serious enough to allegedly push the monarch toward the coldest decision of his reign. The atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace reportedly shifted weeks earlier during confidential meetings surrounding long-term monarchy planning as Charles continued battling health concerns behind the scenes. Senior advisors, constitutional staff, security officials, and trusted royal aides were allegedly pulled into restricted consultations discussing the future stability of the crown, the kind of discussions protected by layers of silence. But according to insiders, panic erupted when fragments of those supposedly private tensions began surfacing outside palace walls through suspicious media whispers and oddly specific gossip circulating in elite royal circles. No direct leak, no official documents exposed, just enough detail appearing publicly to terrify palace officials into believing internal confidentiality had become dangerously compromised. And that is reportedly when Prince William exploded behind closed doors. According to royal commentators, William had spent years restraining his frustration publicly while privately watching the monarchy dragged into endless global controversy connected to Harry and Meghan's media war with the institution. But insiders claim the future king allegedly reached a breaking point after realizing even the monarchy's most sensitive transition discussions could no longer remain safely contained. Palace staff reportedly described William as unusually cold during internal meetings, no longer speaking about emotional reconciliation but about operational survival. One insider allegedly described his mindset with chilling simplicity. The monarchy cannot function if private trust keeps becoming public content. And then came Princess Anne, the figure royal insiders often describe as the monarchy's iron wall, the woman who allegedly views royal duty not emotionally but mechanically. According to palace whispers, Anne reportedly pushed hardest for what insiders began calling a containment review, a quiet internal examination of who still retain institutional connections inside palace systems despite no longer serving the crown officially. That review allegedly uncovered traces of old administrative recognitions tied to Meghan's former position within the royal structure. Small things invisible to the public but symbolically enormous within palace culture, because inside the monarchy records mean legitimacy, files mean belonging, and according to insiders, Anne allegedly believed leaving Meghan's name inside certain protected systems represented a lingering vulnerability the monarchy could no longer afford. The terrifying part, according to royal staff whispers, was not the order itself, but the speed. Sources claim administrative teams were allegedly instructed to quietly revise internal references connected to Meghan's former royal standing with surgical precision. No public announcement, no dramatic confrontation, just silent bureaucratic warfare unfolding deep inside Buckingham Palace. One palace source allegedly described the atmosphere as watching someone disappear without a funeral, because this reportedly was not about deleting history publicly. publicly. Her photos remained. Her titles technically survived. Public archives still existed. But according to insiders, private palace systems allegedly began treating Meghan less like an estranged royal and more like an external figure entirely disconnected from the operational core of the monarchy. And Harry reportedly took the news badly. Very badly. According to commentators close to palace circles, Harry allegedly believed there were still invisible pathways back toward eventual reconciliation with his family despite years of public bitterness. But insiders claim the alleged removal of Meghan's name from protected royal records sent a devastating message. The drawbridge was going up permanently. One royal aide reportedly described it as the moment Harry finally understood the monarchy was emotionally moving forward without them. Meanwhile, Meghan, according to explosive whispers circulating among California media circles, was allegedly stunned by the severity of the move. Because according to insiders, she reportedly believed that regardless of tensions, certain institutional recognitions tied to her years inside the royal family would remain untouched forever, not publicly acknowledged but quietly preserved behind palace walls. The alleged realization that even those invisible protections could disappear reportedly hit with enormous emotional force, especially because the move was carried out so quietly. No confrontation, no warning, just silence. What reportedly shattered palace morale even further was the chilling realization that this decision may have been building quietly for years while the public remained distracted by headlines, interviews, documentaries, and public appearances. According to royal insiders, the alleged removal of Meghan's name from private royal records was not some sudden emotional retaliation triggered overnight. It was supposedly the final stage of a much larger containment strategy unfolding silently inside the monarchy ever since Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal life in 2020. Because behind the polished palace statements and carefully controlled public appearances, insiders claim senior members of the royal household had allegedly been debating one terrifying question for years. What happens when people once trusted with the monarchy's deepest private world begin operating completely outside its control? That question reportedly became even more explosive after repeated waves of public disclosures connected to the Sussexes. Every interview, every memoir chapter, every carefully timed revelation allegedly deepened paranoia inside Buckingham Palace that institutional confidentiality itself was beginning to collapse. According to palace commentators, there was one moment in particular that allegedly changed everything behind closed doors. During sensitive transition discussions tied to King Charles's long-term health concerns, insiders claim a small circle of senior aides became alarmed after noticing private anxieties somehow surfacing indirectly in media narratives shortly afterward. Not direct leaks, not transcripts, but strangely accurate themes and whispers appearing publicly with unsettling timing that reportedly triggered panic among senior palace officials who allegedly feared invisible channels of information still connected to the Sussex orbit remained active in ways nobody fully understood. And according to royal whispers, that fear transformed the atmosphere inside the monarchy from emotional frustration into operational alarm. Because inside Buckingham Palace, trust is not sentimental. It is structural. It is the foundation holding together centuries of secrecy, continuity, protocol, and survival. Once palace officials allegedly began believing even fragments of sensitive institutional conversations could indirectly escape beyond protected walls, the old guard reportedly stopped viewing Harry and Meghan as wounded family members and started viewing them as a long-term vulnerability to the crown itself. That shift, insiders whisper, changed the entire game. Prince William reportedly became central to that transformation. According to insiders, William no longer saw the Sussex crisis merely as personal betrayal, but as a dangerous warning sign about the monarchy's future in an era dominated by exposure, branding, streaming platforms, and public narrative warfare. Palace commentators claim the future king allegedly became obsessed with tightening operational boundaries around the institution before he eventually inherits the throne. And according to multiple whispers circulating inside royal circles, William allegedly believed symbolic half measures were no longer enough. The monarchy either protected itself fully or risked losing control completely. That belief reportedly aligned perfectly with Princess Anne's long-standing philosophy about royal duty. Anne, according to insiders, allegedly argued for years that monarchy survives only through containment, silence, and absolute discipline. She reportedly viewed emotional hesitation as weakness the institution could no longer afford. One palace source allegedly described Anne's influence during the internal reviews as terrifyingly clinical. No screaming, no public rage, just relentless pressure toward decisive action. And insiders claim it was Anne who allegedly pushed hardest for reviewing every remaining administrative connection tied to Meghan's former royal status. Meanwhile, King Charles reportedly found himself trapped inside the cruelest position imaginable. A monarch trying to preserve the stability of the crown while watching his relationship with Harry collapse piece by piece behind palace walls. According to royal commentators, Charles allegedly resisted harsher action far longer than William and Anne wanted because he still hoped time might cool the hostility surrounding the Sussex divide. Some insiders even claim Charles privately feared that completely severing invisible institutional ties could permanently destroy any chance of reconciliation with his youngest son. But over time, palace whispers suggest the pressure surrounding him became unbearable. Every new controversy reportedly intensified fears among palace administrators that public instability surrounding the Sussexes would continue infecting the monarchy indefinitely. And then came the alleged final review. According to sources familiar with palace operations, senior advisors reportedly presented Charles with assessments arguing that retaining Meghan's name inside certain protected internal structures posed unnecessary institutional risk. The language was allegedly cold, procedural, devastatingly formal. No emotion, no family language, just operational analysis focused on access, containment, and future monarchy protection. One insider allegedly described the moment as the palace choosing survival over mercy. And according to whispers circulating among senior courtiers, Charles eventually signed the authorization quietly inside Buckingham Palace without public confrontation or announcement. But insiders claim the true shockwave came afterward, because according to royal observers, the alleged removal of Meghan's name from private records reportedly triggered an invisible social freeze spreading through aristocratic and royal adjacent circles connected to the House of Windsor. Invitations allegedly slowed. Trusted intermediaries reportedly stepped back carefully. Informal communications between California and senior royal households allegedly became almost non-existent. Palace staff, who once quietly defended reconciliation, reportedly stopped even discussing it openly. One commentator described the atmosphere with brutal simplicity. The monarchy had emotionally closed the file. For Harry, according to insiders, the emotional fallout allegedly became catastrophic. Palace whispers claim the prince increasingly realized the institution he once believed he could eventually reconnect with was evolving into something colder and far more distant under William's future leadership. The monarchy had once been his identity, his protection, his prison, and his family all at once. But insiders claim the alleged removal of Meghan's name from internal royal records symbolized something final and devastating. The system itself was beginning to move forward without them. And perhaps the most haunting part of all is the message palace insiders believe this decision was truly designed to send. According to commentators close to royal operations, this was never simply about Meghan Markle personally. It was about warning everyone inside the institution that loyalty remains the monarchy's highest currency. Titles may survive controversy. Public image can recover from scandal. But once the crown allegedly decides trust has collapsed beyond repair, restoration becomes nearly impossible. The monarchy, according to historians, survives because it prioritizes continuity over emotion every single time. And insiders whisper that King Charles, despite every personal instinct pulling him toward compassion, ultimately chose the same path generations of monarchs before him always chose when survival of the institution came under threat.